All right, we're at part four, and we're going to talk about TNA. We unfortunately have to, but there's not much to talk about because TNA right now isn't really that interesting. So the only thing that's on the plate for TNA that I'm aware of, other than AJ Styles being injured, and I mean, what else can you say about that? Everybody else is getting injured in TNA, and everything else is getting messed up. So same old, same old. The only thing different here is that TNA is going to be partnering with OVW and having a bit of a developmental system. I can only assume that this is Bruce Pritchard uh, as the one who spearheaded this project, and I'm actually kind of excited for it. It's odd to say that about a TNA thing, but I think that this can actually help them out quite a bit.
Yeah, it possibly can help them out, but we have to also look at the fact that when OVW were training guys before, they had a lot of WWE guys involved in that process. So now we've got to see if they can actually do it by themselves. You know, if they can produce the core talent that will actually get signed to the TNA roster. It looks like a good deal at the moment because at least we know that Danny Davis's promotion will get more focus. You know, you'll have green guys like Rob Terry getting more training. And also, he'll have a chance of having more of his guys promoted to the main roster. As with the WWE, it was mostly WWE guys who were going down there, getting trained, and then getting called back up. Whereas his talent were usually getting used and jobbed out.
Yeah, OVW has a good history of talent they produce, such as like John Cena and such. Um, Anyone who can score a deal with a training facility where you can start farming out some talent, the more the better. Uh, let's just hope, like Michael was saying, use it the right way. Don't let it go to waste. Don't say, "Oh, we have a training facility," but then never use them because you're pushing people like Flair, Sting, and Hogan still.
One thing that I have my reservations about is TNA has a huge turnover rate when it comes to talent. It seems like they use somebody like the what's a nice way of wording this? The candles burn really bright, really hot, and then die out very fast. TNA tends to get somebody and their new pet project and they're their favorite person in the world, and then within a year they're not in TNA anymore. It happens with older people like Tommy Dreamer and Booker T and everybody like that, and it
Jay
happens with
Lethal.
younger people like a Jay Lethal, or I mean, there's a guy that's in here right now, and I can't remember his name. I've seen his matches. He's an X Division guy,
Austin
Austin
Aries
Aries,
was there,
but it's in Austin Aries. It's somebody else.
Kid Cash.
It isn't Kid Cash now.
but those are two examples where they've been there multiple times, do a huge angle, and disappear.
Right. They never seem to really want to commit to, outside of a few names, their new pet project. So when it comes to FCW, not FCW, OVW, I can't imagine them holding on to this roster that long. And if they're going to have these guys camping out for several years to kind of boost them up and bring them onto the real roster, probably within a couple months they're going to be tired of them and they're just going to release them again. So then what would be the point?
Well, look at the investment they made in Rob Terry, and he's just totally awful.
Jesse Sorensen, I just looked him up. Jesse Sorensen is the guy that I was thinking of. I hadn't even heard of him before, and the next thing I know, I'm watching a pay-per-view and he's getting an X Division title match, and I haven't really heard from him since. Now, of course, I don't watch Impact, so he might just be on Impact.
He's done a lot of stuff on Impact, and is now in a new pay-per-view title match feud with Kid Cash and Austin Aries at the moment.
So I
So
can't
he
imagine
does
them,
get a lot of play.
but I can't imagine them sticking to a guy like that for that much longer.
Yeah, he's very generic. He's one of those guys where he's sort of a dime a dozen, really.
And like with the current talent acquiring skills or lack thereof from TNA, it's always been the biggest name that came off the market that they could currently grab. I mean, they just signed Ronnie from the Jersey Shore. And to me, yeah, exactly. Like, how are you going to go and get a training facility, yet still try to grab people who are coming from WWE, people with bigger names, and yet your fresh talent you were building is sitting on the backside.
Well, if they start using this OVW in the right direction to build guys for the future, set them up, put them in a good position on the roster, and then make the homegrown talent kind of thing, then we might see an actual change in TNA. But until TNA has that change in mind for their business model, I can't see it happening, and I could just see this being another complete waste of time and money. And they're already bleeding money as it is, from what I'm hearing. So if they don't have this money to spread around, this isn't going to be this fruitful endeavor. It's going to be future endeavors.
Yeah, without a doubt.
The whole main issue, though, is Hogan and Bischoff, really, and also Russo, if you think about it. They're the guys that are booking people. They're the guys making these bad decisions. And they're the guys who are making TNA into the dumping ground that it is at this point in time, because they're favouring some talent over others. You know, just look at the whole Jeff Hardy fiasco. But out of the most bad decisions that this company has made, I think the training facility is probably the best one that they've ever done, you know. But they need to utilise it and utilise it to the fullest degree. Otherwise, they could end up being in a situation where they have all this talent and no one's getting the actual training in.
Well, TNA is supposed to be getting a new head of creative in Dave Lagana, who runs the I Want Wrestling website, if anybody wants to check him out. So I'm hoping, I've done a little bit of my research on Dave. I've listened to his podcast and everything like that, and he seems like he's got a good mind for things. So I'm hoping that TNA starts turning around with his help. But I don't know. I mean, I can't put any eggs into the basket of TNA at this point.
Yeah, it's very tough because they're taking the same twists and turns that WCW did towards the end of the run. Just get the biggest, most new names out there and hope for the best. But unfortunately, they're appealing to an audience that doesn't really know who Flair is, who Hogan is. They know the name, they just don't know. They couldn't say what they've done. Like, who did Hogan body slam in WrestleMania? It's just they don't know that type of stuff.
Plus, they're playing it mostly on free tickets, aren't they? They're not actually paying customers. It's not translating to people paying at the gate. Most of their stuff is usually just guys getting free tickets to Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the reason why they're traveling to like show after show, but they're also having to give away free tickets because nobody actually wants to go and see it.
Yeah, Bound for Glory here in Philadelphia did horrible sales for what was supposed to be like their WrestleMania type show, and
2,500 tickets, I think it was.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. A show like that sell out within minutes. Like Mania out at Survivor Series sold out in 90 minutes flat, and that's one of the four. It's not the big one. One of the big four. They can't even Bound for Glory to sell out the day of.
Well, that's more than enough TNA talk for me right now. We're going to finish this off in part 5, talking about a potential other mistake with the WWE Network.